Good morning, everyone, and welcome into another edition of WST Sunday Live. My name is Connor Hrabchak. In a moment, I'm going to be joined by my co-host, Lyss Houde. And together, we've got a lot of Winnipeg Jets hockey to talk about. They played 4 preseason games this past week. Lyss and I were down at Hockey for All Center almost every single day for the skates and the media interviews and all of those things. So we've got a ton to talk about. Most recently, the Jets defeating the Calgary Flames 4-2 last night at Canada Life Center, but some concern coming out of the game as Dylan Samberg left early in the second period after taking a bit of an awkward hit, did not return, and Scott Neal, we'll get to his comments later on, did not provide an update after the game, said they would learn more in a day or two. So we've got a lot to break down. Prospects playing throughout these 4 games, which prospects stood out to us, which didn't. Roster cuts seemingly coming today for the Winnipeg Jets. So we've got a ton to talk about. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Without further ado, let's bring in my co-host, Lyss Houde. Lyss, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How's everybody else doing? It's nice to see everyone bright and early in the chat here. Happy to talk about, like you said, 4 preseason games over the last 7 days. There's a lot that we've talked about since we last spoke. My AirPod already fell out, so we're off to a great start.
Nice.
But how are you doing? How was your day yesterday, Connor?
It was fun. I don't know, I see a lot of people in chat already talking about the Bombers. Got this brand new hat at the game yesterday, but I did do the doubleheader yesterday, and it was an absolute blast. And I said the other day on the show, not all Super Saturdays are created equal. You know, this wasn't the Jets going for the best start in NHL history and then the Bombers playing in the West Final against the Riders level of Super Saturday, but it was one nonetheless. And it was an absolutely gorgeous day at Princess Auto Stadium. I mean, 22 degrees, like perfect day. Not too much wind to make you cold. You know, I wasn't in the sun, so I wasn't too hot. And then the Jets game, obviously, later was up in the press box, was able to get down and cover that game. Nice gap between the 2 games, too. 2 o'clock game and then a 7 o'clock game. Lots of time to do both. So it was a great day. It was a great Super Saturday. I'm not sure how many people did it. Let me know in the chat if you did. But Lyss, I know you were glued to both games from a screen. You didn't go to either game. But just before we get into the Jets, I mean, Bombers 40-3.
Come on,
unreal,
man! That the kickoff return that
was electric.
It's hard for that not to set the tone for like the whole like you're kind of just riding that high, and the fact that they scored a touchdown on their first possession after that as well, right?
Yeah.
So like it was just kind of like you're in good shape from the get go, and then this isn't a Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase situation where you put up 50 points but you give up 53. Like the defense really held off Hamilton, and I wasn't watching nearly that closely, but at one point I was checking and Kenny Lawler had 6 targets and only 1 reception. I watched him get blocked on a ton of really massive catches that he was there for, and like Bo Levi Mitchell was on the money with them, but the defense was just able to manage super well. Like it was just awesome to see. And I think that a lot of people are probably getting back to drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit because it's hard not to want to believe in this Bombers group. They're a ton of fun. And then Zach Collaros, welcome back, man. Welcome back.
Yeah, I found it hilarious. They had 4 completions on their first drive, like more than the entirety of last game with Chris Streveler quarterback. Funny. It's just so like the jokes. Here. Yeah, the jokes kind of write themselves there. But for anyone that was at Princess Auto Stadium and is looking for more content on the Bombers, Schnitzy and I will have the WST Bombers report coming out tomorrow morning, and we'll fully break down that one. I'm sure Schnitzy's in a great mood on this beautiful Sunday here in Winnipeg after a big win. I know he was at the game too, and the crowd was awesome. I mean, you run a kickoff 98 yards to the house to start the game. The crowd's going to be into it, and they carried that throughout the game. But we need to talk about the Winnipeg Jets list. This is a hockey show. This is what we're here to do. The Jets last night, 4-2 win over the Calgary Flames. Do you want to start with the game or do you want to start with Samberg? What do you think?
I think we need to start with Samberg so
Okay.
that you can stop like shaking and rattling and everything. I think there's a lot to discuss. I just know that you're chomping at the bit to talk about it. I just know you are.
Yes.
So we can get into that
Yeah.
first because people are also asking about it in the chat, right?
Yes. There's nothing I love talking about more than my guy being hurt potentially for a long time. So let's get right into it. Dylan Samberg left the game. I know a lot of people have asked for, a replay. The stream was conveniently down for the Winnipeg Jets at the time that this injury happened. So not a lot of people saw it, but it really wasn't a bad hit by any means. I mean, Samberg kind of played the puck up the wall and was turning back. Lomberg hit him, and his arm, shoulder, left side area kind of just got jammed, and it just made a weird noise along the boards. And then you could immediately see there was he didn't care about where the puck went if the Jets had it. He was like one of the last two guys back. He went directly off the ice and sprinted down the tunnel. And then at that point, you kind of know that he's not coming back because it's a preseason game. So it's like, even if they go back and he's fine, they're not going to put him back in. It'll be precautionary. The Jets do that in the regular
it's
season.
Not the same as Morrissey and Scheifele in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're losing those games. You're like, oh boy, this is bad.
Exactly. So Dylan Samberg obviously wasn't coming back, but then after the game, when Scott Neal didn't say it was precautionary and he said, we're getting it checked out. Well, let's get to Scott Neal's comments here, because he was asked, the media was there. I was there after the game. And he was asked about Dylan Samberg. Here's what he had to say just really quickly on Samberg and what kind of the diagnosis is and how they're waiting, and then the hit itself.
So getting checked out here, we'll kind of get more information the next day or so.
I know there were no replays available. What did you think of the hit in real time?
It was just a freak accident. It really was.
So there's Scott Neal kind of just saying they'll learn more in the next day or two. And the hit called it a freak accident. Did not have any issue with the hit, did not call it a dirty hit by any means. And I agree with him. I mean, I was there. I saw the hit. I did not see any vicious intent from Ryan Lomberg on the Calgary Flames on that play. It was kind of just more awkward than dangerous. Lyss, I know you didn't see the hit because the stream was down and you weren't at the game. But what's your concern level? I mean, coming out of the presser, hearing what Scott Neal had to say, the fact that they won't know for another day or two, maybe they're just kicking the can down the road, but still concerning nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, you never know how intentional people's choice of language actually is. And, it could be this sort of thing where, you're trying not to raise alarms or anything like that on Scott Neal's part or anything. Mm-hmm. So he's just like, the team's good, all is well, whatever sort of thing. Or it could be a very deliberate, sense of copism of oh my gosh, okay, they're so I don't know. I think it's I don't know. I am not always the best on a show like this because I'm like, let's just wait and see. I'm not going to start freaking out or anything like that. That's totally fair, you said, too. It's a preseason game and all these different things. Him not coming back means nothing to me because if someone stubs their toe in a game, it's preseason, it doesn't matter, better safe than sorry sort of thing. And the comments could be deliberate, could just be kind of the slip of the tongue. Who's to say, really? So right. I'm holding off on making any snap decisions on what I feel about this situation until I know if there's actually a situation to feel anything about.
That's totally fair, and it's honestly the right way to analyze this. We don't want to sit here. Which is
because I am the queen of the hypotheticals, but within reason.
Yeah, we don't want to sit here and talk about how Dylan Samberg's out for months, or we believe, and then he's out. He's there opening night or something like that, and we truly don't know. The biggest concern for me. And I'll use this to kind of intro this next clip. The biggest concern for me was that the tone that Scott Neal was speaking with, he was very quiet, didn't seem like the Jets just won a preseason game. And I was there for the Jets' first preseason game as well, where they lost on a Sunday afternoon with all of the prospects in the lineup against the Minnesota Wild. And Scott Neal was, his usual self, loud, talking after the game, very more, much more animated about the game. Last night, after a win, that was not the case. He seemed very quiet, very reserved. That's concerning to me. And this next question or this next answer from Scott Neal, Mike McIntyre asked him, about Josh Morrissey playing over 26 minutes in a preseason game, because obviously that's not what you want in a preseason game. But Samberg goes down, someone has to play. And later on in the answer, he talks about, we'll see how this goes with Samberg, and mentions depth and all that stuff. And this was the moment where I was like, okay, this might be a problem. So I'll play the clip here, and you can decide for yourself. Here's Scott Neal when asked about Josh Morrissey playing a ton in this game, and then later on he mentioned Samberg.
Enjoys playing that much, even though it's his
Oh, I
first
know.
game.
He's always asking for more minutes. So, yeah, I know you don't want to do that in their first games in. Was there 3 of them came in there for their first games? So don't really want to do that in the first time out. But at the end of the day, it gets them all up to speed. Like you say, Josh loves that. We'll see how this goes with Sammy. That's part of what we talked about with our depth, about whether it's on forward or on D. We feel real comfortable as an organization that we've done a good job with our depth.
So there's Scott Arneal on Dylan Samberg. Josh Morrissey playing 26 minutes, joked that, he always wants more minutes, so that's fine with him. And it was Josh Morrissey's first preseason game. Get the summer hockey out of him. That's totally fine. And I get the argument, and we've talked about this. The Jets and the Moose, organizationally, the Winnipeg Jets are very deep. But a guy like Dylan Samberg is not replaceable with depth. Like if Hayden Fleury went down in the third pair, or Logan Stanley went down, or Luke Schenn went down, yeah, they have very good replacements for those guys on the third pair. But you lose a Morrissey, you lose a Samberg, you lose a Scheifele. These are guys that all the depth in the world isn't going to help you in a scenario like this, Lyss.
Here's the thing, though, and this is an argument that I had with a lot of people last year, where it's like, no NHL team is equipped to lose them.
No.
Right? Like, if you have a guy who is as good as Dylan Samberg and can come in and fill those shoes, you would have already adjusted things to carve out a role for that player to have a really, really large impact, right? Like, no one is replacing Connor McDavid. No one is replacing Cale Makar. Like, we get that. And then it keeps going and going and going to basically any guy who plays in your top 6 and your top 4. Like, you're going to be replacing him with someone worse, because if you had someone who was just as good or better, he would already be there. That being said, the type of player that Dylan Samberg is, the stylistic fit with Neal Pionk, the amount of minutes he's going to play and stuff like that, I don't know how well equipped the Jets are to handle that should we enter that situation where they have to. But listen, yesterday, Scott Arneal and Neal Pionk were both a little bit cheeky in the morning skate media, talking about how everyone's just kind of over preseason practices and they just want to get some games in and play some games. So I think, for Josh Morrissey, he was really happy to get those reps under his belt. Neal Pionk said he was really happy to get back into game action and stuff like that. And I think, we're going to learn a lot about the players that we already know and where they're at and all that sort of stuff over the next 2 games as well. And just kind of figure out who's going to be doing what. And if we're going to see any changes to whether it's pairings or lines and what we're expecting and stuff like that. And that's also going to be inclusive of a conversation of, okay, who's going to have to step up if there's a situation in which a player does need to step up, right? Because we know that the Jets are going to run that Perfetti, Toews, Nyquist line, but something doesn't go right there. If that line is struggling as much as some people are thinking that it might, what's going to happen there? There's no such thing as a better internal solution unless you have like a high risk, high reward prospect in the farm system that could come in and really, really hit. The Jets don't have that for someone like Dylan Samberg, but I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of, what the next couple of days bring in terms of news on the back end.
They do have a player in their system that they want. They want to model their game after Dylan Samberg, but he's right-handed. It's Elias Salamonson, and I don't think that I see some
Imagine
people
throwing him in and being like, you have to play your offhand and with Neal Pionk. Good luck, Charlie. Like, oh my God.
Welcome to the NHL. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That would be a tall task for anyone, but let alone a player making their, NHL debut would be something else. And I do see some people talking about the preseason in chat. Darth Skater here says every coach has a love-hate relationship with preseason. This is bang on. I mean, coaches love it because you can get your team into shape, you can install your systems, and then a player like Samberg gets hurt, albeit, no matter how serious it is, this could be a 1-week thing or a multiple-week thing. A player got hurt in a game and they're waiting to hear more information. That's the hate side of it. And I will say, I'm very glad that the preseason is being minimized heavily in the new CBA. It's down to 3 games. They're cutting the amount of games in half for more regular season games. I get that, but the preseason is absolutely way too long. And I would have said that whether or not a player of Samberg's caliber got hurt for the Winnipeg Jets. Like it's just too much, Liss. I don't know if you agree on that.
Yeah, I think the fact that they've added in, we have AHL preseason games right now, like the Manitoba Moose in the next, 7 days have 3 game-like simulations, whether it's inter-squad games or scrimmages against the University of Manitoba.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had the prospect showcase before training camp even started. The fact that we have these other things makes me totally on board with cutting the preseason down, right? Like I was kind of in the camp of devil's advocate with the preseason being like, it will suck if, in the future, the Kevin Hees of the world don't get a chance to play, throw the Jets jersey on and all that sort of stuff. Like there is some nice stuff for those early preseason games and making sure that not every player has to play all of the preseason games and stuff like that, because then it kind of just feels like a regular season game, but like with the vibes slightly off in the universe, like it's just like a really weird feeling. So I think, making sure that they keep the prospect showcases, making sure that the AHL gets some preseason games. And then I think that everyone's going to be fine with cutting that number down. Yeah,
100%. And I will say at the same time, knowing that the preseason is way too long, the love-hate relationship that coaches have that Darth Skater mentioned there, you also can't just put players in bubble wrap until the start of the regular season. Like even when there are 3 preseason games, there will be a dress rehearsal. These players will play in maybe even 2 of the games, right? So it sucks. There's a team like Florida who lost a bona fide top 5 center in the National Hockey League in practice. Like they showed the video.
So those things happen. That happened to Dylan Samberg in training camp like 3 years ago. He broke his ankle. Like all these different things.
Did you see the Barkov one
though? No, I don't want to watch it.
You can watch it because nothing happens. He's just he's like about to engage in not even a board battle, just like an open ice battle, and he just drops to the ice and torn ACL surgery done. It's like wow, that's crazy. Pretty wild, yeah. But anyways, this isn't a Florida Panthers show. But my point being, you can't wrap players in bubble wrap till the regular season. They have to play these games. They have to get up to speed. Coaches want the summer hockey rust off of them. And the Jets are just experiencing kind of the worst case scenario in one of their top end players going down with an apparent injury here that the Jets will know more about in the next day or two. Before we move on to the actual game last night, just want to throw out a few stats of some potential replacements. I mean, last year the Jets went 11-9-2 without Dylan Samberg in the lineup. I know everyone loves when I say the record with Dylan Samberg in the lineup, but that's because they were a 500 hockey team with him out, or 11 wins, 11 losses. Ehlers missed 9 of those games in that stretch. The Jets went 5-4-1. Obviously, Nikolai Ehlers left in free agency. So if Samberg misses any time, they won't have Ehlers and Samberg, in which that stretch they went 5-4-1. And then last year, in the stretch that Dylan Samberg did not play for the Winnipeg Jets when he had that broken foot, the 22 games, Hayden Fleury stepped up, and with him and Neal Pionk on the ice in 193 5-on-5 minutes, they got outscored 9-5. Their expected goals percentage was 34%. Their Corsi for percentage was 43%. Scoring chances, 39%. High danger chances, 32%. So they were not even close to 50% in any of the analytics that would tell you whether or not they're controlling possession or controlling the bulk of the chances. And I think that's the biggest concern here. I mean, you already have Adam Lowry targeting a November 1st return date list. And if you have Hayden Fleury playing top 4 minutes, you don't have Nikolai Ehlers because you lost him in free agency, and you don't have Dylan Samberg for the foreseeable future to start the season here, it's a lot of strong players that just aren't in the lineup. And like the Jets can obviously tread water, but I think that's how the mindset kind of has to be here if Dylan Samberg's out. And I know we shouldn't be, talking too much in hypotheticals, but that's a lot of talent to lose for at least the first couple of weeks of the season till Lowry returns.
Yeah, one thing that I find myself always being a bit of a Debbie Downer about with people is that I think sometimes we just need to let a good thing be a good thing. And, last year Hayden Fleury really stepped up, and going into training camp last year, it was like, this guy probably going to play for the Moose. We'll see what happens. Ville Heinelin's injury kind of changed that a little bit, different things like that. And at the end of the playoffs, he ended up playing a really important role for the Jets, and it was awesome. Right. And now people are like, perfect, top 4 defenseman. It's like, oh my God. Elias Salmonson had a really great year last year. People are like, perfect. He's ready to play top 4. It's like, oh my God. Parker Ford, decent showing last night. Everyone's like, he's going to be a guy. Guys, oh my gosh. Like, just because someone is kind of like up to a new level doesn't mean that you need to bring them to the next one. Like, sometimes a guy just is who he is. And so I think that, the expectation for Hayden Fleury to come in and play top 4 left-handed defensive minutes, knowing that there is a priority from the Winnipeg Jets to not necessarily give Morrissey DeMello every single one of the top line matchups that they're going to get every single night, to allow Josh Morrissey to create a little bit more. I don't know, you guys. Like, that's a pretty tall task. But I will say the one thing that is like just so insanely funny about this whole thing is that should there be any type of injury to Dylan Samberg that sidelines him for any period of time, Connor, there is fully a chance that Ville Heinola doesn't get
team.
I know. No, it just doesn't get put on waivers. He will play games. We know this, but doesn't get put on waivers. Right? They end up keeping him left-handed defenseman. We know that they don't want to get rid of him because they feel so bad about this whole situation and all that. I can't believe that this saga could go on for another year. It could. It fully could.
This is the thing. Like, last year they underwent this too, where they had all these bodies in camp, and then Ville got hurt. So that allowed them to keep all 8 defensemen that they really wanted to keep on the roster, including Ville, who was on injured reserve and wasn't really, on the team. They
last
were carrying.
Year was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Fleury, Stanley,
and they kept
Miller,
them all.
like whatever. Like, yeah.
And now this might be the exact same scenario, just not with Ville Heinola going down, who was projected to be a third pair guy last year. People forget he took, the first day of camp he was with Colin Miller. But with Dylan Samberg this year, there's a chance for that. Again, we'll keep you posted. Listen Ice Twitters and at Sports Talk WPG. We'll have you posted on what the Winnipeg Jets say in the coming days on Dylan Samberg's injury, because we talked about it last year, and Jacob Stoller, who, the forgotten third co-host of WST Sunday Live, he talked last year about how disastrous a Samberg injury would be, and it ended up being not disastrous. I mean, the Jets treaded water till he came back. They were, basically a 500 hockey team. But this season, with no Lowry, losing Ehlers, the Jets really need to lean on their defense core, and Samberg is kind of the catalyst for that second pairing and what they can do defensively. Lyss, let's move on to the actual game last night, because I thought that there were a lot of positives. I mean, the Jets did win. It's a preseason game, so you don't really care about the wins and the losses, if you will. But what stood out to you? What was maybe the most impressive part of the Winnipeg Jets game? Maybe a certain player, a certain aspect from last night's 4-2 preseason win.
Yeah, I think that it's not going to come as a shock to anyone that I'm not putting like a ton of stock in the players that I feel as though I know super well. I wasn't watching Gabe Velarde under a microscope last night or anything like that, right?
Top line was good, but
going into that game was really looking forward to seeing some more of Yegor Chibrikov, and I really liked what I saw from them, and I really liked, obviously, the Chibrikov goal on the power play was so fun, but I made a tweet kind of joking about it, but oh my gosh, if we could see that sequence be attempted and hit like at a semi-productive level, like that changes everything, right? Last year, no fault to the coaching staff or anything, but I think the management moves really just kind of threw out some of their better players that they had to choose from on the power play, and we're like, this is what we got to run with. Brad Lambert might carry some pucks. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby is there. Dominic Toninato is there. And I think that this year, Morgan Klimchuk and whoever else is kind of involved in that, they're probably going to be able to actually construct some things around some really, really cool skill sets in players like Nikita Chibrikov, who we're hoping to see be fully healthy this year. Elias Salmonson, who took another step, and Braden Yeager and Colby Barlow being added into that mix is so fun and exciting, with Brad Lambert already still being there. I don't know if that's what their top unit is going to be, but if it is, come on. How fun is that? Like, I think we saw some snippets of that. Braden Yeager, in my opinion, is growing on me every single day in terms of this is a player whose floor I just really do think is that incredibly high. And sometimes you need that in the organization. And you don't want an entire pool of Brad Lamberts where it's like, they're awesome to have. You love having a Brad Lambert, and it's like, this is fun to watch. This is cool. But if you have only Brad Lamberts and none of them hit, you're in a world of trouble. And I think Braden Yeager is going to be really solid for the Manitoba Moose, and, hopefully one day for the Winnipeg Jets as well. But I think that those were two guys that I had some fun watching tonight in Braden Yeager and Nikita Chibrikov.
Braden Yeager was his best game, and Scott Neal echoed that after the game. He was asked about Braden Yeager, who I agree with you, Liz. I thought he's gotten better with every single game, and with young players, like that's exactly what you want to happen. You're not expecting them to come out in game one and just absolutely dominate, but if they can incrementally get better game by game, that's a really good sign, especially for a guy making the pro leap. And as we've said many times on this show, has a really high floor as a prospect and is very polished in his own end and all of those things. Getting a little bit better, adding a little bit more offense game by game, like that is exactly what you want to see with Braden Yeager, and it's exactly what we are seeing. Scott Neal was asked about Braden Yeager after the game. Here's what he had to say.
Seemed like his most
probably his best game. Even going the game in Montreal that I saw, I really looked poised out there. Played the system first, did a great job with that, and then used his skill set. I thought he did a really good job. That line, had some real effective shifts, and saw a lot of kind of what I'd heard about him, and he kind of put it all together. I think that he's felt more and more comfortable.
So there's Scott Neal after the game when asked about Braden Yeager. Just really quickly, Phil Smithson saying, going to start this segment really early, trending down the 4-0 loss in Edmonton. I was at that game. I am so sorry. There's a reason we're not mentioning that game today, Liz. We're focusing squarely on the Calgary game. That was a tough watch. I will say, the one silver lining, and I tweeted this out, is that Cole Koepke has really impressed me in camp, and he impressed me in that game. He's got so much speed, so much energy. He was fighting for pucks. Like, he's almost like a Brandon Tanev type, where he's just crashing into the boards and making things happen. And he had this one shift where he drew a penalty and was holding onto the puck for 10 seconds, circling around. Not Nikolai Ehlers type of circling around, but he was battling for pucks, and that's the exact kind of like dog mentality that you want to see from those fourth line players. Koepke's like poise and offensive, skill set has impressed me in camp, but in that game, it was like, oh yeah, this is a fourth line guy in terms of he's got the speed, he's got the energy. You throw him out there, you're not going to get burned, or you don't feel like you're going to get burned. And that was really the one and only thing that I took away from that game. Also, Phyllis mentioning Bauer was memorable in that game. Tyrell Bauer fight, obviously there was a Tyrell Bauer fight, but maybe one of the funniest ones yet, because the Jets, as you know, if you watch the game, had nothing offensively, basically the entire night. They're cycling the puck in the offensive zone. One of their best offensive shifts of the game. Tyrell Bauer has the puck at the point, passes it down low, and then drops the gloves and fights. And it's like, okay, well, that offensive zone shift is over. Tyrell Bauer is fighting now. And it was a heck of a fight. I mean, they're throwing tons of punches, two goons, if you will. But Liz, I mean, just classic Tyrell Bauer fight. But do you have anything from that Friday game?
I have no comment. I
don't think there is anything to be said on the Friday game. I'm not going to lie. And I'm sorry, Phil, that you were there.
That's about Tyrell Bauer. So
yeah,
no kidding. Shout out to Phil for
supporting on the road.
Sorry they didn't put on a better performance for you.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just quickly run through some of the stats that we got from last night's game. The Jets. Weirdly, it was even in shot attempts, but they got heavily outchanced. And I do think there's an element of preseason score effects at play here. We're not going to dive too much into that. But the Jets went up 3-1 in the first period. It's a preseason game. They probably just coasted from there. As for specific lines, the Toews line I know is under a microscope this season so far. They controlled 58% of the shot attempts, but got weirdly outchanced 6-2. So they were taking a lot of low percentage shots, if that's how you want to read that. Liz, what else stood out to you, maybe besides specific players? I do want to ask your thoughts on the Toews line, because we've seen them twice now in the preseason on home ice. What have your thoughts been of Jonathan Toews, that line, and anything else that stood out to you last night in the game?
Yeah, I guess we haven't spoken at all on this show since preseason games really started. So I'll try and capture a little bit of a bigger picture, because you and I went to the game on Tuesday, and we were able to kind of give each other some live play-by-play commentary. It was no Mitch Clinton, but we had some fun together, kind of, making our observations and everything. And we didn't think that Cole Perfetti looked awesome in that Tuesday game, but just strictly rust based. It wasn't that he wasn't where he was supposed to be or anything like that. But Nyquist had a little bit of sauce to him in that game. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something to like here. But listen, here we're, 2 full games into seeing that line. Definitely leaving a lot for me to desire in terms of being a productive second line for the Winnipeg Jets and for being a really solid second line for them to continue along the progress that they started last year as, one of the better teams in the league. I'm not sold on it yet. Definitely not. I think, Jonathan Toews looks okay. And I think that we've said this from the get-go, in order for that line to be what an NHL second line needs to be for a competitive team, Jonathan Toews needs to be better than okay. And so far I'm seeing okay, which is good. And, I think that taking as many years away off from the game as he had to makes sense, that I'm not seeing anything more than okay so far, but I'm not, planning the parade by any means. And Gustav Nyquist last game, I think I still need to see a little bit more from that player. Cole Perfetti, everyone knows how I feel about him, and I feel a lot more comfortable in my observations I've made from that player because it's a lot more complete than anything I've seen from Gustav Nyquist. So I'm not too concerned about that player, but Toews and Nyquist, I need to watch a little bit more, and I'm not going to be doing so with pom-poms in my hands necessarily.
Nice. Yeah, I do like that take. I do think I wrote this in our show notes too. Jonathan Toews has looked okay, and that's okay. Like, this guy is playing preseason hockey after having 2 years off, and he's made some plays. He's in the game that you're talking about there, Lyss, on Tuesday. He had an incredible back check where he didn't take a penalty on basically a half breakaway and stopped the play. Didn't even let Max Jones have a shot off in that scenario. And offensively, I mean, the hands clearly are working. Like, they're there. And there's still another level. Like, we know that there's another level here. Most notably last night, if you were in the building or if your stream was working at the time, you saw the empty net scenario where Cole Perfetti had the puck just inside the Jets blue line, passed it over to Jonathan Toews. Here's going to be his first Jets goal, wide open empty net, and he just fumbled it. Absolutely fumbled it. Puck just... yeah, I don't know what happened there. But again, that's just another scenario in which the hands just aren't 100% there. And like I said, to start this little rant, that's okay. That's okay. The guy hasn't played in 2 years. Like, I know it's Jonathan Toews. I know he's wearing number 19. I know it's easy to get wrapped up in the name value, but it's all good that he hasn't, dominated the first 2 games. And I see some people in chat, and I agree. Like, he's been solid. I'm not saying he's been bad by any means. He's in the right spots. He's making some defensive reads that are that's what Jonathan Toews is amazing at and has been amazing at. And you'd expect that to carry through. The hockey IQ, the hockey sense is clearly still there. The conditioning will get there. I'm sure of that. And then, I don't know, like, are you buying Jonathan Toews more from games 40 to 82 or games 1 to 40, Lyss?
That's a good question because, it's rust versus load management, exhaustion, whatever kind of thing, right? Like, I think I have to go the back half. I think that's something that a player who plays the way Jonathan Toews does, which is, very reliant on the teammates around him in terms of getting the most out of him, whether it's, getting point production from your line mates or making sure that you're helping out the defenders as you manage in-zone defense for taking in-zone draws that you end up losing. I think that he's a guy who will get better as he gets more comfortable with the players around him. I think that we saw the best versions of him when he and Patrick Kane were kind of blended as one, right? And stuff like that. Yeah. I think that there's a lot that will come from team chemistry and not in terms of like an intangible thing, in terms of actually managing one another's skill sets. And I think that comes with time. So I think that makes me want to buy the later stock. I think that he's going to get the rust off a little bit. I think that later in the season he'll be better.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you on that. I think I'm higher on Toews back half of the season than I am the front half. Phyllis making a good note here. He was right in front of the Calgary goalie's eyes when that power play goal went in. Lyss, I know you were there yesterday. We spoke to Neal Pionk about Toews' net front ability. He was more talking about tipping the puck.
He was so stoked about it.
He was. But what kind of an advantage can that be for Jonathan Toews? I mean, he didn't get a stick on that one, but he was in the right spot. Great screen. But what kind of an advantage can that be for a power play to have a guy that can tip pucks from the high slot? I mean, I feel like we've been living it. Yeah. The past 2 playoffs. Everyone just mentions a layered screen, and it's just like, what does that even mean? But Now we can do it. No, I'm kidding. But
No, totally. I mean, I think that the thing is always when it comes to a power play is how many different types of threats can one person be at any given time, right? And it's like, okay, when you had Dustin Byfuglien on the point, it was like an insane shooting threat, but you knew that there was also some crazy passing threats involved there, so you couldn't totally commit to the shot and all these different things. If you have your guy who's in the high slot, depending on what kind of like system you're running at any given time, knowing that he's an option to make those passes and fire them off to the sides from the middle there, or also down low, depending on where your fifth guy is, but also having like legitimate tipping ability. Like Colby Barlow's had some sick tips in preseason so far. I'm like, okay, this is looking good. Like it just adds, it's a whole other animal, right? Because that puck, your reaction time is almost non-existent to a tip puck from the high slot, right? Like you kind of, you have to almost stop it before it even happens, or else you're kind of SOL. So I think that that's a really, really fun addition, especially knowing that in any given game, Neal Pionk or even Colin Miller is the guy who's going to be taking that shot from up there. Those are guys who have some pretty wicked shots that can come from the blue line there. So I think that there could be something to like there, and it adds another fun element that kind of diversifies the second unit from the first.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100% because the first unit doesn't have that. They don't have, I mean, Gabe Vilardi obviously is one of the best net front players in the league, and he can tip pucks, but he's usually at the side of the net. He's usually down in his office, and we've talked about that many times. We did see the power play work last night. Neal Pionk was the goal with Jonathan Toews screening, but we also saw a few reps of the top unit later on as well, and I liked what I saw. I mean, there was obviously movement. They're going to need to adjust to Cole Perfetti being there, but Cole Perfetti being a left shot, kind of being down by the side of the net as well will help that unit, I think, in picking up right where they left off. Now, I don't think they're going to be the top unit in the league because that would, mean a second straight year of having a ridiculously high shooting percentage on the power play. But I do think that there's a potential for them to still be top 10, top 5 as a power play. And I think Cole Perfetti he's built for the power play. Like he is absolutely built for having that extra space on the ice, manipulating defenders with his eyes, opening up passing lanes, and hitting a guy like Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor or Gabe Vilardi at the side of the net. So I really think, that the power play unit didn't score last night, but I think that they are going to be a strong power play this year, and they're only going to get better with time. And as Cole Perfetti gets accustomed to that top unit. Anything else from last night's game list before we move on to today's pending roster cuts?
No, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that because there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, so yesterday we talked to Scott O'Neill down at the Hockey for All Center, and he said that we can expect roster cuts tonight. He was saying that yesterday, which obviously didn't happen. There were no roster cuts last night, or else we'd be talking about them here. Or today. So the Jets have a day off today, and then they're back at the Hockey for All Center tomorrow. I believe Manitoba Moose camp opens tomorrow. So that is, a pretty good indicator that the Jets are going to be sending some players down today, making some roster cuts. O'Neill mentioned also that they needed the numbers through the back-to-back over the weekend because you had to send a team to Edmonton and play a team the very next night at home against Calgary. What are you expecting today, Lyss, in terms of the roster cuts? Like, are you just expecting guys like Phil DiGiuseppe to go down and maybe Cale Clegg, like players that we outline as kind of destined for the Moose? Where Tyrell Bauer, what are you expecting on that front?
Yeah, so maybe first I'll kind of give everyone a quick rundown. Yesterday I went through some Puckpedia and bucketed every player that is eligible for waivers and players who are waivers exempt. So guys who are waivers exempt who can be sent down and we're not worried about anyone scooping them up. Braden Yager, obviously, Jacob Julian, Brad Lambert, Colby Barlow, Nikita Chibrikov, Kieran Walton, Fabian Wagner, Danny Zhilkin, Elias Salmonson, and Parker Ford. Parker Ford is one that I actually did not know was waivers exempt. So that's kind of nice to have that as well, because that's a player that I'm sure the Jets would like to keep. So any of those guys I think are pretty much at risk of being part of the early cuts. You might want to reward some of them with having really strong camps like Colby Barlow, Danny Zhilkin, Elias Salmonson in particular. And so I'm not sure on them, but like Fabian Wagner is getting cut today. And like, the different guys like that, I think there's no question there. But then you get into the more interesting ones, the guys who do have to go on waivers in order to be assigned to the Manitoba Moose. Actually, and while we're here, I think Isaac Poulter is also waivers exempt. I didn't write down the goalies. I think I put them into the wrong category. I don't think any of the goalies have to be put on waivers.
Okay.
Between Milic, DiVincentis, and
if any
Poulter,
of them would have to be, it would be Poulter. Because Milic and DiVincentis are still, too young.
Babies.
Yeah.
They're little babies. But players who are at risk of waivers, I just kind of went with everyone who is not, in my opinion, like an absolute lock on the fourth line and lower. So Tanner Pearson, Cole Koepke, David Gustafsson, Philip DiGiuseppe, Jared Anderson-Dolan, Mason Shaw, Samuel Fagemo, Walker Duehr, Isaac Phillips, Ville Heinola, Kale Clegg, Tyrell Bauer. Those players all do have to pass through waivers in order to get assigned to the Manitoba Moose. And to me, there's a lot more interesting discussion to be had there with that group of players I just listed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we see Bauer in this first group. I think we see Isaac Phillips in this first group.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, Walker Duehr had a good game last night. He had the goal that was a fluky one. Like, I'm not even counting that in really his game because he threw the puck on net and it hit a defender and went in. But other than that, like, he skated really well. He had some good hits. I thought Walker Duehr showed well last night. I still think he's a guy that we could see today. Mason Shaw, we could see today. Phil DiGiuseppe. I think all of these players we could see today. You're not going to see a Gustafsson, a Koepke, a Pearson. I don't think we see Anderson-Dolan today either.
Me
I mean,
either.
he was playing in the playoffs.
I also don't think we
last
see
year.
Kale Clegg today either.
You don't think we see Clegg? Okay. Well, with Samberg, it's good. Sharp. Yeah, good call. Good
I think
call.
they'll keep some bodies there. Who knows?
Yeah.
But of that list, though, Connor, who do you think is the most at risk of getting claimed on waivers, or if anyone at all? Right? Because I think every year it's always people are like, it's my team's trash is another man's treasure or whatever. And no, oftentimes trash is just trash. And I'm not trying to dunk on any of these players. They're not trash. I know that. But people often think, like the Simon Lundmarks of the world are going to get claimed. They're not. But there is always a risk, especially with the President's Trophy winning team, that there's clearly some depth in the organization and all that different stuff. This is different than players getting put on waivers from the San Jose Sharks. I don't know. Who do you think is kind of most at risk of getting claimed here?
I think if I don't know. If we're including like Koepke and Pearson, those guys obviously, right? Like that's of the players
Maybe
that
don't include Koepke and Pearson, but like Gustafsson, I don't know.
Gus, no, I don't think so. Jared Anderson-Dolan, maybe.
Gets claimed?
I don't think Gus gets claimed. No, maybe Jared Anderson-Dolan, because he came in the playoffs last year, scored some goals in the playoffs. I could see that. I can't see Shaw, Fagemo, Duehr, Phillips. I can't see Heinola. We have a breakfast bet on it that I think he does get claimed, so I'll stick to that. Clegg, maybe. I don't know. Are there any players on that list that stand out to you as maybe a sneaky option to get claimed?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of those things that I don't have any really, really strong opinions. There are some guys that I would like, guys like Mason Shaw. Like if Mason Shaw got claimed, I'd be like, what is going on here? There are some that I would be shocked if they did, I guess. But I don't know. Like every team's got a little bit of a rhyme or reason. And I feel like especially any of these players that have been in the organization for more than just 2 weeks of training camp, like in my heart, I'm like, well, of course I know why a team would want them. Like I've watched them for so long and all these different things. But I think you can look at some of their transaction histories and guys who have passed through waivers before. I think will, especially at this time of the year, pass through waivers again pretty easily. But I know we have our bet, but Ville Heinola is higher on the list to me in terms of players that are at risk of getting scooped up for sure. And then, maybe some of those depth pieces, depending on if they bring a certain role to a team that someone's kind of looking for. But I don't think that the waiver game is going to be like crazy bad for the Winnipeg Jets, but I do think that their first group of cuts it is not going to have anyone get scooped. It's either going to be all guys who are waivers exempt or, the Tyrell Bowers of the world that aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I do think that we'll see that today, even though, maybe the Samberg injury complicates things a little bit in terms of who they want to put on waivers. Like maybe Clegg was destined for it, and now they don't because they want an extra left shot defenseman in camp for these next couple of weeks here or the next week or so. I mean, these players are going to have to go on waivers at some point. So we'll see. Maybe this is the first big day for the Winnipeg Jets in terms of cuts. That's what we're expecting. That's what Scott O'Neill said, that we can expect them to trim down their camp roster. So keep an eye out for that today. We'll have you covered on the @SportsTalkWPG Twitter as well. And the Jets PR account should be tweeting out stuff like that in terms of who gets put on waivers, who gets sent down.
I have the notifications on in case
Yes.
they do it while we're live. So just
Yes.
so everyone knows, the notifications are always on.
Yes, of course. I do just want to shout out, a lot of people are talking about Parker Ford. Scored last night. Running Man said that he liked Ford's game last night. I thought Parker Ford was really strong, and he's becoming kind of a training camp preseason darling over these last number of years. Like he dominated one year, and the whole storyline was, oh, is he working for a job for the 13th forward and all of that stuff from Providence, undrafted, just like Brandon Tanev, the parallel, like they were the exact same player at that point. But honestly, taking out last year and just looking at this year, I thought he's had a really strong camp. Last night was really, really good. Nice pass from Jared Anderson-Dolan on that goal as well. And Parker Ford is another player that is going to be a big player for the Moose this year. You talk about them having depth. He's the perfect player. He can play with anyone. I mean, he's a grinder. He'll go get the puck in the corner, and he's got skill that when you do have the puck as an offensive line, he's not, he's the offense is not going to die on his stick list. So I do have high hopes for Parker Ford this year. Still young, got into a game last year, scored in Boston. But I have high hopes for him with the Manitoba Moose this year. While we're talking about the cuts, I mean, do you want to talk a little bit more about the Moose before we get into our segments? Like,
yes.
Are there any
What?
Are there any players here? Let me phrase it to you this way. Are there any players that in camp have impressed you to the point where you think that they could be better for the Moose than you initially thought coming into camp?
Yeah, absolutely. Danny Zhilkin. I think that's the one that I have to circle right off the cuff there. And I think, we talk about Parker Ford also missed time with injury last year. Danny Zhilkin, I don't remember if he was hurt at all last year, but he was hurt a ton in the seasons leading up to last year. Mm-hmm. So last year was just kind of a matter of getting back into it and everything. Danny Zhilkin, though, is one that I absolutely want to circle because he is a guy who has kind of some underrated finish and a really cerebral player and all these different things. But I struggle with the whole idea of people labeling players as defensive forwards when they're like, he just can't score, so he must be good at something, so we're just going to call him a defensive forward and hope for the best. Danny Zhilkin's a guy that I actually think can really manage some of the tougher matchups that the Manitoba Moose might get with, when you play in the AHL, there's a mixed bag of top lines being the Braden Yagers and Colby Barlows of the world, these young up-and-coming prospects who could end up being legitimate NHL players one day, and then other guys who are more of those career AHLers who have the league kind of figured out and are really, really productive and can manage things really well. Any given night, you never know what you're going to get depending on what the team is that you're playing against. But I actually genuinely believe in Danny Zhilkin's ability to kind of take some of that matchup the same way that we were talking about kind of what the Samberg pairing does to allow for, maybe Elias Salomonsson to go and use some open ice against some weaker competition and stuff like that. Having a legitimate defensive center, I think is massive for them. And I think that if you have that, but also knowing that there is a little bit of a scoring threat too, where it's like kind of Adam Lowry, but more offensively gifted, in my opinion. I'm not saying that Danny Zhilkin is Adam Lowry, but the concept of that player where it's like Adam Lowry is able to manage in zone and all those different things, but also you don't really feel like letting that line get a break on you in an odd man rush because they are actually going to be able to create something fairly productive as well. So I think that there is something that could be built there around Danny Zhilkin as a center that's really, really exciting. That also allows someone like Brad Lambert to continue to play at center and maybe have a little bit more of an offensive role, lots of ozone starts and all those different things. So I'm really excited to see what the team ends up doing with a couple players like that. I think Colby Barlow is going to be awesome. I think that's going to be a ton of fun to watch. I'm really, really looking forward to kind of seeing him. But yeah, Zhilkin, Lambert, Barlow, and Yager are kind of the big ones that I've circled. And having guys like Parker Ford or what have you kind of being able to plug them in as a utility guy on maybe a duo of forwards that has a lot of chemistry or has a lot of potential to be really fun and as a higher floor guy to make sure that he can keep up with the line. I think there's a lot to like down there, so I'm excited to see what those guys can do.
Yeah, I'm with you on Danny Zhilkin, and it's going to be interesting because Brent Bellamy here brings up, how does he only have 17 points in 2 years? Like, he's played a lot of AHL hockey already and hasn't produced the offense. So is this just like a crazy shooting streak where he's just red hot? Or is this really, him breaking out as still a young player who's been very defensive minded in his career and maybe putting the pieces together offensively? So he's a player that really interests me as well. Colby Barlow, I think, is the most fascinating one for me. I didn't really see him as a player. I saw him more as like a developmental, almost project type, at least to start the season for the Manitoba Moose. And it may turn out that way, that's still the case because he is making the pro leap. But at the same time, like he's looked so much quicker, so much more explosive in these preseason games in training camp that I think he's going to be a much better player day one than I thought he was going to be coming into the season. So to answer my own question, I think I'm going to go with Barlow, who you mentioned on that as well. Let's get to our segments list. Let me bring up the graphic here. I know some people earlier on were dropping their early picks for trending up, trending down, but it's time for us to drop our picks for trending up, trending down. This is the segment where we pick one Winnipeg Jet who's trended up or down over the past week of play. The Jets have played 4 preseason games, so there is a lot to choose from here, Lyss. Let us know your comments down below, your picks for trending up, trending down. And if you're enjoying the stream so far, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss some of the great content we've got coming out this week on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. Lyss, your pick for trending up. We have real games to analyze this time for the first time this season.
You go with a weird one.
Yeah.
Yeah, shocking. Lyss is going to pick a weird pick for this segment. Yep. Trending up, Luke Schenn. Okay? I'm going to go with Luke Schenn because I think that over the last week, whether it be him spending so much time signing autographs with the kids, whether it be some of the insane hits he was laying last night at good times, right? The puck actually does change hands. The player actually does get removed from the play. He's not taking himself out of a situation where he needs to be, all that different stuff. And also just who Colin Miller has been kind of paired with sparsely over the course of camp. I feel like I'm more inclined to think that he might have a significant role in this team this year. There was some, I don't know if smoke is the right word, but just in terms of like how he was brought here and just his whole situation with the double trade. And I know like trades like that a year from now aren't going to be allowed. Like you're not going to be able to trade a player twice within that window for those double retention purposes and all those different things. And he's just a guy I think that was looking for this to be the right fit. And I don't know that it was initially. And then he had that extra year on his contract, so he didn't really have a choice in the matter. I'm thinking that this is looking better as a match between the Winnipeg Jets and Luke Schenn. I think there's some potential for him to, whether it's quote-unquote win that third pairing right defense role, I don't know. I was still inclined to think that he and Colin Miller are going to share a little bit, but I'm going to give him my trending up just because I think that the last week it's been a good showing for Luke Schenn.
Yeah, I will say, I have it written in our show notes. Nobody told Luke Schenn it was preseason last night. He had some massive hits early.
I saw a couple of insane
in
ones.
the first period too. Like he was ready to go. And I love that. And the Jets, again, a lot of people like Scott or Neal will talk about winning a job. And a lot of people in our comment section will say, well, you look at the numbers game. And I share that thought. You look at the numbers game, there's really no competition if we're being really honest. But a guy like Luke Schenn has competition on that third pair. Like it's him or Colin Miller. Like both those players, they're not in, they're not at risk to make the team or not make the team and get sent down to the Moose. But he is competing for that third pair role. So there is competition in that sense. But still, I agree with the comment section that's going on a bit of a Nikita Chibrikov rant. And my trending down pick is coming, so just wait. But my trending up pick is a guy who's also on the bubble, and I said impressed me Friday night. It's going to be Cole Koepke. I think this is a player who scored 11 goals in a purely fourth-line role last year for the Boston Bruins. I'm not sure why they let him go. I mean, the Bruins aren't necessarily known for their forward depth, at least in the year of 2025. And he's a player that, again, scored double-digit goals from a fourth-line role for them and has a ton of speed, a ton of energy, is physical, and has better poise than I thought he had for a guy that's just on a 1 year, $1 million deal. So the game on Friday night, again, if you watched it, you might be entitled to some compensation or some legal fees because that was ugly. But Cole Koepke was really impressive to me in that game. So I'm going to pick him for trending up for this segment. Lyss, who do you got for trending down?
Oh boy. See, I was also trying to think about who I picked last week for trending down. I don't remember. It was probably something silly because I always pick something silly in the preseason for this segment. But for trending down, it's gonna be a weird pick here. I'm gonna go with Hayden Fleury. And I think in a similar, it's more so the fabric of the decor, where I think that he's probably the guy who gets the call should Dylan Samberg be out for any period of time. We're not going to rehash this whole conversation that we had earlier in the show. If you missed it, you can go back and watch us kind of talk about how we're not going to jump to any conclusions about Dylan Samberg, but actually we're going to jump to conclusions about Dylan Samberg. I think that he's a guy who, if he, for any period of time that you're not riding the high of the playoffs and the miracle goal or whatever you want to call it, like we're gonna see Hayden Fleury get a little bit exposed, I think. So I think that he's a guy who maybe is trending up in terms of potential ice time and all these different things, but I think that we are not going to love what we see if he has to play second line minutes against top competition for any period of time.
I like that trending down pick because usually, or in the past, we've taken trending up for players that are just naturally moving up the lineup. For
this is projection. This is like real NASDAQ. Like, this is looking futures here, guys. Come on.
This is trending down. He's moving up the lineup, but that's almost not good for the Winnipeg Jets. And I outlined their stats earlier on in the episode. I outlined Fleury and Pionk's stats as a pairing. It's ugly. They were outscored 9-5 in their 5-on-5 minutes, like 34% of the expected goals, 32% of the high danger chances. Like, they got shelled. There's no other way to put it. So we will see. We will see what that ends up being if Dylan Samberg does miss game action when the regular season begins. My trending down pick is going to be Tanner Pearson. I see a lot of people. I saw a lot of outrage, honestly, on Twitter during the game on Friday for people that were watching. Just not really impressed with how Tanner Pearson was playing. I'm not here to say that he's not going to make the team or he should be sent down to the Moose or anything like that. And this is where my issue comes in with, Scott O'Neill talking about competition and battles for roster spots. Like, there's zero chance Nikita Chibrikov makes the team over Tanner Pearson, right? Like, you can talk me out of that if you think I'm like way off. But Nikita Chibrikov has had a great
I wouldn't say
camp.
Zero chance. I think there's like a 4% chance.
I think that's too high. Like, Pearson needs waivers, and they brought him in. He's a veteran, he's been around the league. Like, there's no chance. And Nikita Chibrikov is a guy that I've loved in camp. I mentioned on last Sunday's show that, okay, we're getting into the games now, but in the skates, Nikita Chibrikov has been very noticeable. He's been battling his ass off, like winning puck battles, like in his sleep in camp, and he's scoring goals and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm excited to see how this transfers into game action because Chibrikov has been awesome. He scored a goal last night. I thought was very, on the puck, great forechecker, didn't burn the Jets in any scenarios. That's one of his best qualities, I think, where Chibrikov's not going to burn you by making a bad decision. He's not going to make a rookie mistake, if you will. And he's got fire. He's got bite to his game, and he's small, but it doesn't matter. He plays much bigger than his size. I really like what I've seen from Nikita Chibrikov. I haven't for Tanner Pearson, so I'm going to say trending down Tanner Pearson. And I know Brent Bellamy asked, and maybe this is a good transition into our burning questions segment. Let me just bring up the graphic because we're going to get into it now. He asked, who is your fourth line on day one? It's Pearson, Barron, Koepke. And that's it. Like, that's what it was at day one of camp. That's what it's going to be. If I was running the Winnipeg Jets, which we all know I'm not, it would probably be Chibrikov, Barron, and Koepke. And then Gus would go down and Pearson would be the 13th forward. That's how I think it should play out. It won't be, though. I think it's going to be Pearson, Barron, and Koepke. So that's my pick for trending down, but also burning questions.
What about the Gus bus, man? Oh,
Barron's
it
the
breaks
center.
my heart. Like,
yeah.
And what's hard for me though is that, like, you say, okay, Nikita Chibrikov doesn't make the team over Tanner Pearson. Fair enough. I think we can agree that just based on precedent, we know how that's going to roll out. What if it comes down to David Gustafsson versus Tanner Pearson? Because that's value. It's like immovable object with unstoppable force. Because for sure, but they'll cross that bridge when they get there. But like, it's like, do you value veteran depth or is it loyalty? Because that's what's going to happen when it's Pearson versus Gustafson on the waiver wire there, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, because Gus has been around a really long time, and he's been flirting between that 12th and 13th forward position, and every time he's come in my opinion, he's been fine. He's been more than fine, and if Tanner Pearson isn't more than fine, I already don't keep him over David Gustafson if I have to put one of them on waivers, but I also acknowledge that I have a little bit of a soft spot for David. But, it's really interesting to see what'll happen there when that situation comes, because right now, obviously, they can keep them both. They need an extra forward. We have both gone on the record thinking that they're going to keep 13 forwards and 8 defensemen on their active roster.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see. I agree with you, though, that the response to Brett's question is that the line is going to be Pearson, Barron, Koepke on that first game. I think should everyone stay healthy for the next week, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's like we've seen enough preseason games now to formulate a take on the fourth line, which is just like peak Canadian market. Like 6th defenseman, 13th forward, like overanalyze the heck out of it. Like I love it. Like this is what we're here for. This is our one burning question segment, though. Thank you, Brent, for submitting that one. Kenny's water bottle asks, when Lowry returns, who plays the 4C position to Meskov or Barron? And this list, you just brought up Gustafson versus Pearson in a way. When Lowry returns, assuming the Jets are only going to carry 13 forwards, which is likely, that's a decision that they'll have to make. David Gustafson will have to go on waivers. Tanner Pearson will have to go on waivers because Lowry's coming back and pushing one of those players kind of out of the lineup, assuming there's no further injuries at that point. I do think it's Nemesnikov though, as the no, I think
Here's
it's
my take on this one.
I think it's Barron. Go ahead though.
So I think the line is going to be Nemesnikov, Barron, Koepke, some iteration of that.
Yeah.
But I think this is kind of a prove it moment for Morgan Barron. It's, are you going to be the winger? Or are you going to be the center? I think Vlad Nemesnikov, they know they can sort of plug into wherever they kind of need to. They've already, chosen him for that role. He lost his second line center position, but they're like, oh, cool, you can be our shutdown center. Like he can do anything really for this team. They trust him to do that. So I think that if Barron has a really good showing as a center to start off the season, I think they'll put him down there on the wing. But if Barron struggles, they'll move Barron back to the wing and they'll put Nemesnikov in as the center. Yeah.
I think the Jets coaching staff values faceoffs highly too, and Nemesnikov historically has been 35 to 40% in the draws. So I think it's Barron. Although if it's Nemesnikov, I'm not shocked either. So we will see when Adam Lowry returns.
Who knows? Maybe we'll make a bet about it.
Maybe exactly. Wesley asks, what Neal Pionk will we see, contract year Pionk or not? Here's my thing with Neal Pionk. When he's with Dylan Samberg, he's absolutely a guy that you pay $7 million a season. Like he is worth that contract that the Winnipeg Jets just handed out. When he's not with Dylan Samberg, he's not a $7 million defenseman. I don't think so. TBD.
One day I'm going to write like a memoir about Neal Pionk or something like that, because I think he is one of the players on this team that falls the most victim to our own biases and quote unquote eye tests and stuff like that, where he does do a lot of little things pretty well, but just the type of player that he is and the way he's almost a little bit awkward to watch. Put him in the same camp as Logan Stanley. Logan Stanley's mistakes, he can make the same mistake as any other player on the team, and it's going to look like he just dropped a bomb or something just because of the way things look when they're coming off of Logan Stanley's body. I think Neal Pionk is a little bit of a victim of that. He's turned into a whipping boy for the Winnipeg Jets fan base. And listen, I don't think that he's necessary. Like, results don't lie. Like, there have been some times where he's definitely struggled when put into situations where he needs to step up. Don't get me wrong. But I do think that he is a player that is a little bit more awkward to watch, and therefore we always think he's doing a little bit worse than he is. I think he's going to be okay. I think Neal Pionk is going to be okay, because I think Neal Pionk has always been okay. I really, really can't subscribe to this narrative that he is the worst defender on the team and all these different things. I think that he's a player I'd love to dive into a little bit more someday to talk a little bit more about it, because his mistakes are very high leverage, and I get that, but it doesn't take away from the fact to me that he can still do a lot of things really, really well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like I think Neal Pionk, even without Dylan Samberg, is a top 4 defenseman. You know, like I think with Dylan Samberg though, and the pairing that they formed last season, both of the contracts that they signed, like you are locking up an elite second pairing for minimum the next 3 years, with Samberg for 3 years and Pionk for 7, I believe it was. I know it was 7 million AAV. I'm not sure if it was 7 or 6 years, but it's going to be really interesting because with Hayden Fleury, I outlined the numbers earlier. I'll say them again. Outscored 9-5, 43% of the shot attempts, 35% of the expected goals, 32% of the scoring chances. Like it was not good last season. And you could make the argument that a $7 million defenseman should be able to carry a pairing, but that's just really not the case here. And I think that with Dylan Samberg, Neal Pionk is worth maybe the $7 million contract and more, because he's the puck moving second power play defenseman that really makes that pairing play in the offensive zone. Like Dylan Samberg's the defensive guy, shuts everything down, but Neal Pionk's the puck mover. He's the offensive guy. He's creating in the offensive zone. So I'm a big Neal Pionk fan. I do think that he does go a little underrated in Jets fan circles, and I think you put it well there, Lyss, where it's because his turnovers and his mistakes are ugly and evident at the same time.
And they're still happening. Like, I do acknowledge that.
Yeah.
They are things that are
Not a
happening.
perfect
But
defenseman,
every single player on the Winnipeg Jets causes turnovers. Every single
Right.
one of them does. Every single player in the National Hockey League causes turnovers and whatever. It's just sometimes we notice them. Our eyes are drawn to them a little bit more depending on how they look. And certain players are victims of that for sure.
Yeah, and Neal Pionk is also, over the past number of years, it's been well documented that he's played through some pretty serious injuries and like a foot issue.
true.
Like, so I think there were moments over Neal Pionk's career here as a Winnipeg Jet where he's playing through like a broken foot or something, you know, something that most players would take the time off, and he doesn't look as good. And that gets held against him when he is healthy and does look good. But it's like, oh, but 4 years ago, Neal Pionk played in a broken foot and looked terrible. Well, no duh. Like, right? Like, I don't,
Like, also stop doing that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
why I hate it when
Sure,
players.
that
It's
too.
like, oh my God. Please stop playing at 60% so that you can play at 0% for the next 20 games and then come back at 100%. Please.
Yeah, that's the Adam Lowry. Got the hip surgery, said he could play through it, but it was bothering him too much. Got the hip surgery. He'll miss a few games and then hopefully be 100% at the end of it. But
That's the dream. That's the dream. You got to do it.
yeah, I'm a big Neal Pionk fan. I'm not trying to like dunk on him or criticize him in any way. It's just going to be a tall task for him to post positive results without his partner in crime, Dylan Samberg, on that second pairing. And it's a good question in terms of which Neal Pionk will we see, contract year Pionk or not. I think we see contract year Pionk, assuming health for Dylan Samberg. I do. I think it's more, it's status quo from last season, to answer the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But then again, if Dylan Samberg's not playing, I don't think we see that. You know, I think we see a 40% expected goal share second pairing. Unfortunately, that's where I think we're headed. If Dylan
that's
Samberg's
why I
out.
told you guys to sell your stock in Hayden Fleury.
Yep. Listen to Lyss. Get ahead of the market, folks. That was one burning question. Thank you, everyone, for submitting some great questions today. Lots for us to talk about. We really appreciate it. And if you're enjoying the stream, make sure you hit the like button down below. Like I said, notification bell, Winnipeg Sports Talk. We've got tons of content coming out. Winnipeg Blue Bombers with a big win yesterday. Schnitzy and I will be breaking that down on the WST Bombers Report coming out tomorrow morning. And then, Lyss, we have our analytics video that we've now teased for 3 straight Sunday lives. We have a date for it. Tuesday morning. It will be coming out. It's almost 40 minutes. And again, if you're someone who's wanted to get into analytics, when I just said expected goal share.
So you gave a nice little precursor to it this morning.
Yeah. When I just said like expected
stuff.
goal share, if you're like, what on earth does that mean? Maybe this video is for you. It's kind of an intro to analytics. We try to explain all the basics, how we find these analytics, how they're tracked, how we view them, which ones we like to use over others, where the value is in certain stats and where maybe they fall short in certain areas. We tried to cover it all. It's why it ended up being 40 minutes. But if you're someone that's wanted to learn more about the basics of hockey analytics, tune in Tuesday morning. That's going to come out. There's no big show that day. It's National Truth and Reconciliation Day. So we're going to have that episode come out in the morning if you do want some sort of content, and it'll obviously be there throughout the week. So Lyss, analytics episode this week, more Jets hockey. They're on the road. what do you got going on this week? I mean, there's 2 road games. I think the Tuesday game is also on WinnipegJets.com. Friday game is on TSN. And then we'll be back on Sunday to break it all down before the season begins for real.
Yeah, so this week there's camp is still going on. Moose camp starts on Monday. Gotta give the plug. They have a couple of scrimmages against the University of Manitoba Bison's men's team. One's going to be at Canada Life Center. One's going to be at Hockey for All Center. And I believe both those are open to the public. So that's going to be fun. We'll see what the roster cuts look like. And then what the what's the following waiver wire looks like, depending on who ends up sticking around with the team. Those are going to be a ton of fun this week as well. And Connor and I will be down at the rink kind of watching the last of training camp before everything gets underway next Thursday. So I think, we'll be watching for those waiver claims that we talked about a ton over the course of the episode, as well as the whole idea of there's always the secret third thing that the Winnipeg Jets could also place claims on waivers as well, right? Like I always forget this every single training camp where it's like, you never know.
Axel Jonsson-Fjallby.
I think that was one from a few years back or whatever, right? So I think that there's always going to be a lot to watch. And then who knows, once we get through all these preseason games, you wrap up on Friday, maybe all the eyes turn back to the Kyle Connor contract situation before we have a couple days before games start up again on Thursday. It's going to be such a fun weekend of sports there. We have the home opener on the Thursday, Moose home opener on the Friday, and then the Jets play a matinee against the Los Angeles Kings on the Saturday. So Connor and I are going to be locked in for that. And we have so much more fun content coming where all this came from.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute blast. I mean, the Bombers also, they're so back. So good time for Winnipeg sports coming out of yesterday. I mean, the Dylan Samberg injury, we will see. Stay glued with the @SportsTalkWPG Twitter, the Winnipeg Jets PR account. They'll have you covered there. Like I said, WST Bombers report tomorrow morning, analytics video Tuesday morning, and we have a ton of content coming out. Liz and I are going to do a Winnipeg Jets hot takes episode over the next couple of weeks before the season begins. So we'll have
about that. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, I got you. We're going to have some hot takes, so you can leave a comment on that and let us know how wrong we are. I was 0-3 last year, full transparency, on my hot takes. I think it was like Velarde to score 40, Perfetti to score 60-plus points, and then the Jets to be outside the top 10 in goals against. Just absolute missed the mark on all 3. So we'll be better this year. Try and go 3 for 3 this year on my hot takes. And you can let me know in the comments of that video how wrong I am as well. So from Lyss Houde, I'm Connor Hrabchak. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to WST Sunday Live. We really appreciate it. On the way out, make sure you hit the like button. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk. Enjoy the day of NFL football. I know the Steelers and Vikings are underway already from Dublin, Ireland. So I'll be kicking back, watching some NFL football, and we'll see you all next Sunday on WST Sunday Live.